Welcome to the Lessons Learned podcast, a podcast reflecting on the lessons we've learned and those we're still in the process of learning. I'm Komal, your host. I'm an interviewer, investor, and someone who has lived a lot of life in a short time. I built this podcast as a place for us to reflect, to be together, and to learn from one another. Let's get into it.
Okay, are we doing this?
We're doing it.
Why not? Let's just get into it. I'm channeling the spirit of my wife where she just goes for it.
Yeah.
You just walk onto a stage and just kill it. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Lessons Learned. My name is Mitch, and today I have the privilege of interviewing the most incredible woman I have ever met, my partner in life, and my best friend, Komal. Welcome to your office.
This is so cute.
Oh, it's going to be so cheesy.
I can't even handle it. He's reading from his laptop, you guys.
Don't make fun of me.
Thought it was going to be just
serious.
like a casual combo, but he's been working on his questions for like 2 hours.
No, I'm just polishing.
You're so cute.
To set the stage, we're here in Komal's new office in the small town of Carp, just west of Ottawa. For those who haven't seen it, it's a beautiful little 12 by 12 room. The walls are maroon, classic Komal colors with gold trim and paintings, and it's very rich and welcoming and warm. And we have our new fig tree, Fernando. Is that his name? Fernando the fig tree.
Yeah, we bought him from this lovely couple in Toronto.
Oh, I have to move closer to the microphone.
Just a little bit.
Just come closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a special episode. You're turning 30 in a few days. By the time people listen to this, you'll be 30.
Oh my gosh. I'll be turning 30 on Sunday, so this will come out Thursday, so I'll almost be 30.
Okay. Well, we'll go back. I'll change that. First question, will you marry me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. On to the next question.
I think we're already married, but I'll marry you every day forever.
Oh my God, we're going to drive people insane. Okay. Real question. I'm going to gush here for a second, but it's a real question. From the moment I saw you, I fell in love. You walked into that house with an energy I had never encountered before, and my entire being was immediately drawn to you. You have an infectious and welcoming energy that immediately makes a person feel at home. When was the first moment in your life that you felt there was something special about your own energy?
Wow. That's a big question. Guys, I haven't seen the questions, just so you know as well. When was the first moment I felt so there was something special about my energy?
Yeah.
Wow.
I stumped her.
Yeah, I'm so stumped. I don't know. I feel like the first time I realized I could have a special energy was when I was in 4th grade. And I was failing 4th grade and a teacher intervened, and then my mom and my brother helped me study for a science test. I share this story on stage sometimes. And I went from failing to being the most improved student in the class that year. And I noticed that that was like my first foray into like something I intend and the impact that it could have. So it really was like a first moment for me to be like, oh, wait, like something I do can be important and special and have impact. My grades didn't just impact me, but made the people around me even happier. So it reinforced me becoming like a people pleaser in some ways, which I'm still working on. But at the same time, it showed me that I had power beyond myself. In making something come to life.
I like that. Also, I mean, as someone who knows you, I would add to that. Like, it's not just a people pleaser thing, because you somehow, out of the habit of high achievingness, I think you started to see the impact that has when something is like of a very high quality, a product or an event or, whatever it's logistics. You're very detailed and thorough. So funnily enough, I knew you were going to tell that story.
Did you?
Yeah.
No.
I did.
Shut up.
And so the next question was, from a young age, it was
oh my
clear.
God, you're lying.
I'm not lying.
Oh, okay.
Because from a young age, post grade 4, you started to step into that really, like seeing that power in yourself, and you became valedictorian by grade 12. You got the grade 12 physics award. And it could have been, with family pressures or whatever, it could have been very easy for you to step into the world of STEM. What drew you, and I wanted to link this, being your partner, I'm going to draw it, but what drew you to journalism instead of STEM, which you were so good at?
It was so funny because I think being the youngest in my family, there wasn't a ton of pressure on me to be something specific. So where the narrative for a lot of South Asian young people is their parents wanted them to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. I mean, Mom wanted me to be a lawyer, not a doctor.
She might still want her to.
It's only when she saw me in a stadium with Michelle Obama that Ma said, anyone can be a lawyer, Komal. But not just anyone can do this. I was like, Ma, it took me 30 years, but here we are. I don't have to be a lawyer. But anyways, going back to then. So I didn't have that pressure on me to necessarily go into STEM, but I had the agency of choice. I was the youngest of 5 who were raised in our house, my 3 older cousins, my brother and I. And grades were important. Like I had to do calculus, like you shared. I excelled in physics. I became valedictorian. It was my mom's priority was to make sure I was well-rounded in my education, so that whatever I chose, I knew I was choosing because I had found a way to exceed across the board, and then choose based on, I guess, that interest and passion. And storytelling and speaking were always really natural to me. And knowing about people's stories, hearing what they have to say, and then sharing that forward alongside the social justice, human rights, political science part of my brain, which are the other things that I studied in university, human rights and poli-sci. It all just kind of came together. And when I visited Ottawa, when I came here for a conference in 11th grade or 10th grade, someone pointed at Carleton and said, that's the best journalism school in the country. And I said, I'm going to go there. So that planted the seed.
Now, I want to interrupt. Is that before or after there was the photojournalist's book that you got that you fell in love with?
So the Glamour, Marian Pearl's compilation of stories that I have out on the bookshelf here, isn't it? I compiled my bookshelf here with books from friends or people I've admired or books that have impacted me, and that one is a big one. That actually was in 12th grade going into first year. So that was like the
seed was planted earlier.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Totally.
I love that. Okay, on to the next question.
You're so cute.
I'm having so much fun. This is going to be like 4 hours. This is a softball. You've had the privilege of being supported and mentored by many incredible people. What are some of the best lessons you were taught by others and not learned on your own?
The first person who comes to mind is Bouse.
Oh.
So being at Sundance, and I will tell this story in an episode one day in the fullness of it, but I got myself to Sundance when we were producing Dream Girl, the documentary, and I pitched Mindy Kaling from the audience to be the narrator of our film, which, spoiler alert, did not happen. But it was another experience for me. I went to the festival not knowing anyone. I missed the premiere that I was supposed to go to for The Mask You Live In, which was about the this concept of the mask of masculinity, by Jennifer Siebel Newsom, who's now the governor's wife in California, and incredible woman. The first partner is the name she's given her title. Gavin Newsom is her husband, and she did also misrepresentation. So she was someone I really looked up to, and I feel so upset at myself that I said the governor's wife, because she is an incredible powerhouse. But all that to say, I missed the premiere of that film because my flight got canceled in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So I had to rent a van and drive it from Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Park City, Utah, where Sundance was happening. And once I landed my vehicle, when I landed in the city is what I mean, and got there and settled in, I went and saw a panel with Mindy Kaling on it, pitched her got so excited, my young 24 or 25-year-old self, feeling on top of the world. And then I went to Zoom, which is the restaurant that's owned by Robert Redford, who runs Sundance.
Yeah.
And sat at the bar by myself. And lo and behold, all the panelists sat next to me at a table. Mindy Kaling, Lena Dunham. There was a woman from SNL. I can't remember the comedian's name right now, but they were all just sitting right there. And then this man sat next to me who turned out to be Baus. And his documentary film, How to Change the World, opened the documentary was one of the opening night films at Sundance. And we just hit it off, and he encouraged me to go and say hello to Mindy again. So I did at the table, and just like reinforced. Yeah. Gave her my card and her assistant as well. And then I came back, and Baus and I just chatted, and we didn't have any executive producers for the film yet or advisors on the creative standpoint for the doc. And so Baus came on, and after 2-3 hours of having dinner together at the bar that night, I learned so much about him, so much about film. And the next day we met up, and something that he said to me was he had a couple of rules of engagement for how we would work together. And the one that stuck out most is do what you say and say what you do. So what he meant by that, and he's from
follow through.
Yeah, exactly. Follow through. So he sometimes has these interesting colloquialisms because English isn't his first language, but it's basically like, if you say it, then do it. And be honest about it and follow through and show up and do the work and be filled with integrity. And so I think with a lot of my mentors or people I look up to, integrity is something that is so important to me as a human. Like it's my core, it's the single most important core value in my life. And that's been reinforced by the mentors around me. But having Baus kind of see me and see my potential and be willing to go all in with me, with that being the only rule between us, was really powerful for me.
I love that. Baus is the best.
Baus is the best.
All right. This one's personal. You have an incredible ability to call me out on my shit and also help me be my best self. What I really mean by that is that you have a unique ability to see where people are at, hold space for them, and lift them up. Where do you think this came from?
I think it's because it's what I wanted most in my whole life. I always wanted to be seen, and I always wanted to be loved, and I always wanted to be supported, and I always wanted to have everyone be okay with me being myself. And so because that wasn't necessarily what I got all the time from the people around me growing up, and with how intense and chaotic our home was growing up, I think that's why I can give that so easily to people, because it's what I wanted most for my whole life. So I know what it feels like to not feel seen, to not feel, to question the love that you get. And so for me, it's comes back to that piece of integrity and like the purity of intention. It's like, no, like I'm just here to see you, to help elevate you.
I just want to hug you.
And to like help you take it to the next level in the ways that I can. And it's just and I think that's still the thing that, even though we have such a powerfully incredible relationship, and the life I've built around me and the friends I have around me now and the way my relationship is with my family now, the thing I'm seeking most from myself is that validation of myself. And that's why, I talked about, after listening to last week's episode about rituals, I was like, wow, I said, do not abandon yourself like a million times. I think that might've been a little bit annoying.
Note to self.
But it's because that's the greatest lesson I have to learn for myself. But I'd say that's why it's so easy for me to do that for other people, and why I value so much doing that for other people.
You're very good at it on behalf of someone who is the recipient of all of that. So,
gee golly gosh,
thanks for
my
being
love.
you, cutie. This one's lighter. What are the signs for you when something feels right? Can you describe whatever those feelings of alignment are, and how others might identify them in their own lives?
This is really cool, because this summer when I was younger, I used to like, I'd say like early to mid 20s, I was really good at just listening to my gut. For me, it's my gut. It's like, I get this. You've been with me a number of times when I've got that gut hit. Mitch was with me when I saw the Dreamgirl trailer, when we were on vacation in Italy. You were with me like when...
I want to tell that story.
Just like over and over and over again, these moments where I would see something, hear something, or something would click in my head and it would be like game over, like singular focus. My whole body is aligned to it. I'm like, it's like I've downloaded the manual on all the things that need to happen now for X thing to happen. But it all comes back to my gut. And this summer I was working with a coach, Tanya Geisler, who focuses on breaking down imposter syndrome and our experiences with imposter syndrome. And what I love about her research and her work is it's research-based. And so the intellectual part of my brain that can like get me in trouble sometimes of overthinking,
right?
She satisfied that part of my brain alongside like providing the coaching I needed to understand and like break down my own imposter syndrome.
Right.
We were talking about this concept of imposter syndrome in my life. She reminded me that sometimes I can go between, I'm very humble when it comes to the things I've accomplished. I'm not the first person to, shout from the mountaintop of what I've done, because being humble is something that my parents always showed me with their own successes, but that can border on the line of diminishment as well.
Right.
So me kind of tampering down my own success led me to a place where I couldn't listen to the whispers in my life. I couldn't trust my own reactions and responses to the right next steps.
Right.
Because I hadn't been celebrating or been authentic with my own success. I kept trying to diminish it. And it was like, well, then my body and my mind, they were disconnected in terms of the signals to listen to. So what we ended up doing, this actually was with another coach, was she asked me, how did you make the best decisions in your life? And one of them was deciding when we met, like that first moment we met in that house party, which Mitch talked about right on the open. I walked in a red dress. He was in his blue sweater, and we saw each other and beelined for each other in the living room.
It was the weirdest phenomenon.
Yeah. And then a friend of ours ended up capturing that first moment we met, and like
we'd been talking for like 2 minutes, and somehow someone took a picture.
And we've been together ever since. Like, it's insane.
It's true. So for you, those moments of alignment are very loud.
It's like my gut.
It comes through the entirety of your being.
It's just like, whoa, like what is, like, it's almost like I don't even know. I feel like it's Iron Man's power pack, but it's in my gut. And it like lights up when it's like, this is the thing. So this summer, that coach helped me sort through that.
So you would say for people experiencing that, listen to it.
Well, ask yourself. So what I was going to finish saying is when she did that exercise with me, she asked me tell me about the best decisions you've ever made. And so we went through 5 or 6 scenarios that I remembered. Right. She said, how did you know in each of those scenarios? And it was my gut. It was my gut. It was my gut. It was my gut. And then she said, okay, so how are you going to allow yourself to listen to your body in making big decisions in the future? And so it was reminding myself. So the way that you guys can do this, if you're listening, is do that same exercise. Write down, like clear your head for a second, give yourself a minute to just like ground, grab your journal and just write out the best decisions of your life. And then the connecting point between each of those. How did you decide those things? And where did you feel it in your body? And then come back to that as that decision-making center for yourself. So for me, it's my gut. If my gut's not in it, I'm out.
I like that. I want to go do that exercise.
Let's do it together later.
Okay, next question. We often hear the words, let yourself be seen, tell your story, and other positive affirmations about validating our lived experiences. How do you remind yourself that your life is meant to be shared? This is a big one right now.
What's so annoying about this interview is I can't hide.
Can't hide, babe.
I'm usually very good at like or in instances when I need to protect myself or put up an armor and have like my like I'll be willing to go to this place, but Mitch can just see through all of that. And I've had a very like just
You've had a vulnerable time right now. And this is a selfish question from my perspective, because I've seen you, navigate so many challenges in your life, and you always come back to this really profoundly empowered and, like you just said, like guttural space of, I know what I need to do. I need to be with people. I need to engage in their lives. I need to, conduct this act of like humanness and storytelling. And so I guess to rephrase the question is like, in moments like right now, how do you get back or sort of turn to that truth?
I think, like, to give people context, what right now is the last 2 months have kind of been my like welcome back party and circuit to the life I've always wanted, which has been lots of travel, lots of meeting people that I've been admiring online, getting to connect to other folks, speaking at events, locking down and being able to interview Michelle Obama, having a massive career high, going back on the road, starting to get tired and exhausted, and then planning to take my birthday month, November, as a quiet work and low key and rest month. And I was talking to a friend of mine today about how the rest how we forget that after a big sprint like that, the come down is going to be hard, because we're trying to tell ourselves to like be gentle, go slow, like give yourself grace. But when you're coming off of a bullet train, the residual impact of stopping, it's going to take some time for those vibrations and those reverberations to stop.
Yeah, you've got to find your feet.
I have to find my feet. And right now I'm wobbling.
Yeah.
My legs are jiggling or jelly because of how fast I was going.
Right.
And when I look forward, and even in the quiet work, it's quiet because I'm planning for the next sprint next year. So I can't help but feel like I should still be sprinting. But this is me trying to bring in the boundaries that I set after getting sick, knowing my limits. And that was this 8 weeks of travel and all of that. And now the settling. So how do I remember that it's important to share my story even in the settling? I don't know. I don't know, because even like planning podcast episodes is hard right now.
Right.
And even like feeling like
it's a relentless act of believing in yourself.
It's a relentless act of believing in myself, and it's a relentless act of a commitment to vulnerability. But at the same time, a commitment to my own boundaries. So understanding the difference, or like when vulnerability is meant to be a part of my art, when teaching is supposed to be the core of the art, when the release of expression is actually helpful to me as a human in creating, or how much of that I'm supposed to be protecting and keeping for myself. So it's this constant back and forth. And I think also when we slow down, or when we're in one place for a while as creators and people who are on the move all the time, we can feel invalidated by the quietness and the beauty of life.
Absolutely.
So slowing down and being home and being in my office now in Carp, and us being in an obscure place in the middle of rural, like Ottawa, outside of Ottawa, like I almost feel like I've set up this life to keep humbling myself and to keep reminding myself of my roots, of where I came from, but also the constant challenge that it's going to be for my brain to operate at max capacity and my body to operate at max capacity, and to try and be and do all the things that I want to be and do in the world.
Right.
And then coming back to like the essence of life, that is community, slow, nature, connection, home, routine, stability.
It's like working through the challenging experience of feeling like you become irrelevant through pause, getting through that, and then being like, all right,
I'm ready again.
well, not necessarily I'm ready again, but also in between there's some period of recharge, you know?
And I think we forget that we're supposed to recharge.
Yeah.
And that's the place that I'm in. I'm forgetting that I'm supposed to recharge.
Well, not necessarily, because my next question is, as your partner, I have a window into your self-care practices, and I have, you know, I've seen the tremendously positive impact they have when you're in those routines. And this sort of builds off the last question, but I guess like a lot of people will look at your life and are will admire how much you talk about the importance of self-care. So I think an important thing for you to share a little bit about might be is like, what are some accessible practices you consider indispensable and why?
Fitness. I have the privilege of being well in my body. I know what it felt like to have vision loss, vertigo, the inability to move consistently every day, to be in recovery from 3 different surgeries for 6 to 12 weeks at a time. And so this runway of good health, and not like, I still have my endo pain once a month when I have to cancel my workouts and be in bed for a couple days at a time. I just had that 2 days ago. But today I didn't work out, and I can feel the energy in my body banging to get out.
Right.
And sometimes I forget that anxiety is just, for me at times, depending on the level of the anxiety, is just bottled up energy in my fucking body. And just it being like, can we go out and play? Can we go out and hit some balls in volleyball? Yeah. Can you please take me for a run? Can you please lift something really heavy and smash it on the ground? Yeah, like it's literally the spirit or energy, or like we're not meant to be sedentary. And so self-care for me is movement. Another one is meditation. I'm on day 3 of getting back into my meditation practice. And today the resistance to sit, and like my practice is 20 minutes of breathing exercises and then 20 minutes of mantra meditation. The resistance I had to sit was the reminder of why it is absolutely critical that I sit now, because my mind doesn't want to turn off. It doesn't want to pause. It wants to be in the driver's seat, and I'm telling it to sit the F down. Right. So movement and meditation are the 2 biggest. And then after I'm done meditating, I always journal. I just free write in my journal. And the deliciousness of that feeling when I see the thickness of the front end of my journal growing because of all the thoughts I've been able to pull out of my mind, it's so satisfying. And like, I just started this new journal like 2 months ago, and I'm almost like probably like a 1/6 of the way through it. And there's something really meaningful about that to me, where it's like, it shows me that I'm doing the work of processing and being mindful.
100%. It's something I've intermittently done. And like I being your partner, I can validate what she's saying here. So for listeners, people talk about self-care things and how they do it. It works very, very well for Komal. When she exercises, her, like anyone, mindset changes completely. And every morning when I have, the opportunity, if I haven't left for work or on a weekend, every morning you meditate and journal. You just you come out of that little cave of self-reflection with such a powerful and authentic energy, because you've processed any sort of undirected feeling you might have had in the morning, or some thoughts that you were chewing on in the week and didn't have time to sit with. And it's so cool to see someone come out of that space in any way where they're just they're so sure of that moment. And there's just there's a pause and a presence that it's just, it strips away the franticness that comes with sort of that inability for so many of us to just stop for a second, even 2 minutes, to be with our thoughts. And so to do that consistently for half an hour is always beautiful.
Well, thanks for that reminder, my love.
I'll see you. Do you have time for a few more?
Yeah, we got like 15 minutes.
Amazing. Okay. This is building off of some of your previous responses, but something I've watched you do really well in recent years is establish boundaries. And, you know, some of the bigger, less accessible ones was like, we moved to the country to give us more free time for recovery. But I think something special for other people to hear from you might be is like, what are some boundaries you've established and what made you realize a boundary was needed?
Wow. I've established a lot of really good boundaries with family members. And it comes from a place of growing up in an environment where shouting and aggressive language was the norm. And so a really important boundary I've set in my adult life is when an argument starts and people begin to get nasty, just stopping and saying, people don't talk to me like that anymore. This isn't the type of conversation I have when it comes to this kind of like dialogue or argument or whatever it is. Like, when we're cooled down,
creating pause for a moment to calm down,
because the anger needs to be processed. And we do this a lot. Like, say we've gotten into like a moment of anger, or
this is good. This is what people want to hear.
Like when we get at each other, which, you know, happens for couples, but
never.
Mitch is very proactive about resolving and like the resolution.
The billy goat.
Yeah, Mitch is an Aries, the billy goat. He likes to like billy goat me into an emotion.
I'll throw
or
myself under the bus here. I am the type of person that when I can see my partner or someone is upset or a situation isn't resolved, I will just kind of be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?
Let's fix it. Let's fix it.
How can I help? What do you need?
The experience of anger has to be processed. Like
sure.
It's got to go through your body. You got to go through the emotion. So say someone is arguing with me or upset with me, when the language gets hurtful, I know that what they're doing to me is going to hurt them even more. But also, I know that that's unacceptable.
Right.
You don't talk to me like that.
Sure.
Nobody talks to me like that.
Sure.
So I shut it down and I just help redirect the dialogue. And sometimes it doesn't end well. Sometimes it ends with the phone call being cut short and us not talking for a while. But I've set the boundary to say, as an adult, this isn't how I resolve conflict. I'm not about to get into this with you and shout at each other and call each other names and get into this drama with you. I'm here to have an adult conversation about this if we want to talk about like the real shit we're feeling. But that's really hard for me too, still in a family where I'm the youngest. And it doesn't happen often anymore. Like, I'm very grateful that our family is so thoughtful and caring with each other now. But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
And setting that boundary was super important to me because it also allowed me to do that with friendships and relationships in my life as well. And it was actually the friendships in those relationships and the reorganizing there and the experiences there that gave me the strength to do it with my family. Because I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life is if you can't do it, like your family's going to trigger the most unhealed parts of ourselves. Because
we live with my dad, so this is a daily challenge for me.
Totally. And
in the best way.
But it's easier for me because I don't have the same triggers that you do with your dad. So he and I can be, you know, I speak the language of Papa Joe.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You guys have a beautiful and playful banter, which would be so triggering for me.
Yeah.
Which serves as such a healthy reminder that my response is completely nonsensical the vast majority of the time.
But we need that perspective, right? So the way that I have been able to reestablish healthy boundaries with friendships and people external to my family has helped me gain the confidence and courage to do the same with my family. And that if I'm able to heal things and resolve relationships within my own family, then I think that like for me, that's brought me closer to my greatest healing, or for me to know that like, okay, like I'm doing the right things, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. I feel like I could ask 100 other questions on that, but I'm going to pivot here because I think this is something for anyone who's followed you or watched you on your journey. This is something that as your partner who's been able to see you navigate life has always hurt my brain. And I still, after 11 years, don't fully understand it. And it's what I call the green light mentality. So anyone who's close to us has heard me joke about how I say Komal's brain is broken because she looks at any problem, situation, goal, objective, and all she sees is green lights, where many of us might stop after the third yellow light, or what we look at things as barriers. I've always been blown away by the way you approach any situation with just this like unfailing belief that you can get the results you want. See Michelle Obama, see manifesting Fumzile, the head of UN Women. Komal was at the UNGA a couple of years ago. She was running late for a session or something, and she was like, I want to run into someone like Fumzile. And then 2 minutes later, like,
she's the only person outside of the venue.
Exactly.
Because I was literally like going to see her on stage, and I was like, the timing works out that if she's just leaving right after her speaking, she's going to be outside
but
when
just
I
this
walk up.
Belief you can manifest these things, everything from calling Suzanne West, getting the yeses, like just you are not averse to cold calling, to doing things the rest of us often find incredibly daunting. Can you unpack that for us? How did this green light mentality become such a big part of your being?
I'm going to tell you a story about my dad. It's a little anecdote, but it's a glimpse into what I grew up seeing. My dad and my mom went to Florida with or California with some friends for a conference with one of the companies that I think it was with Mazda, like for a sales conference. And on the way back, Papa had, like, they made it all the way through customs, all the way through security. They were on the Canadian side. And out of my dad's pocket, he pulls 2 oranges. And he hands one to my mom and one to my aunt and just laughs. Because what can you not bring across the border from the US?
Yeah.
Citrus fruits. What did Papa decide to do? Because he's a rebel through and through, bring citrus fruits across the border. So this is like a tame example of just like, a no is not a no.
This is funny. I've never thought, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I've never thought about the fact that this green light mentality just might come slightly from a place of rebellion.
I am the ultimate rebel. Like, oh, wow. The example that's top of mind is at Marie Forleo's launch event in New York. I had invited a friend,
This is the one most recently?
Yeah, in September for her book launch. I had DM'd someone that I wanted to get to know online, Danielle Leslie, who's this incredible online entrepreneur. And I offered her a floor seat with me because I had an extra ticket. Yeah. And she was already going with another friend. So she invited our mutual friend Zim, who is the founder of Travel Noir. So she joined me on the floor. But Danielle and Catalina joined us on the floor just at the beginning because they weren't checking tickets at that time. And then my brain went to, well, I know that there was some resale tickets available. So I'm just going to look at the seat map on Ticketmaster and see what seats haven't sold yet because the event is about to start. And there was 2 floor seats just down from an aisle from us that were available. And I was like, you guys should just sit there. Like, they haven't been sold. They're going to be empty. People haven't been checking tickets. Just sit there. So we did. And then I continued to use that mentality to also get them into the meet and greet. And it was just so fun for me because I see rules and I think they're meant to be broken in the gentlest of ways. Obviously, with like integrity being a main value of mine, it's in instances where the experience can benefit someone in a really meaningful way. Without hurting anybody.
Absolutely. And I will jump in and add on that. There's been so many times where I will, from this sort of visceral, like adhering to social convention, mentality say no to something, or I'll be like, oh, we shouldn't do that, and you'd be like, we're definitely going to do that. There is literally no reason to not do that. And then it forces me to sort of like face that feeling where it's like, wow, I was just like, adhering to a thing that isn't really a part of how I feel.
And I think that permeates into all parts of my life. Like even with the consistent follow-up with Michelle Obama's team, like if you hear no from her chief of staff once, a lot of people would have stopped there, but I heard no 6 times, and then the no turned into a yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that persistence, that ability to see a system or an experience or the potential of something and to say, what if?
Right.
What if? Or how might we? How could this be different? Or how could this actually be what I want it to be? And I love that about my brain because it means anything is possible.
I love this. It's like there's never a good enough reason to not.
Yeah.
So until the universe has given you like a really like a well-formed no answer, you're going to keep prodding and be like, I don't like that no.
Until my gut tells me it's time to stop.
Exactly.
And when my gut does tell me it's time to stop, I back off. Like there's a point when you know you're being annoying too much or the rule's not worth breaking.
Yeah.
For example, like taking down the Michelle Obama interview episode. There's a lot of listeners who got to listen to it. There's a lot who didn't. I wasn't asked to take it down, but I didn't sign a contract for the event. But because I want to operate at that level, I have to respect the conditions of that level. It's a private event. I'm not supposed to be using recording from that further. So I didn't. And so it's like, that's me seeing a rule, being like, I'm going to try and break it. But I made that episode more for myself than anyone else. So now that I have it, it's for me. And don't worry, guys, I'm going to do a recap episode without the audio. That'll come very
Stay
soon.
tuned.
But that's an example of like when my gut was like, no, you got to adhere to this rule.
Yeah.
But I love green lights.
You love green lights.
Why not let everything be a green light? Well, I mean, depends on if it's an intersection or not. Jokes. Bad joke. That was a terrible dad joke. Okay. I take it back.
Can I say, Maddie, cut that out, but actually just keep it in?
Yes.
Okay. So we're getting close to the end here. A few more and we'll wrap it up. This question is from your lovely friend, Julie, all the way from Italy.
Really?
Yeah. I sought some counsel.
Yes. This is so nice. I'm going to cry because I'm just so vulnerable this week.
No. It's a good one. Can you name a couple of times in your 20s that maybe felt like lows, but ended up being critical turning points?
Oh, I love you, Julie. I think all of it. Like there's just all the lows. You know, like all the lows. And I think I'm getting emotional because Julie was there for majority of them, as were you. My 20s started out on a real low. Like my Thaiji had just died from alcohol poisoning, and it turned our world upside down. And I was 19 turning 20, had to forego exams for summer school, and thus began like a really serious psychological and like intense experience with going through university while grappling with insane grief. But that experience was the beginning of my training in resilience, and not even the beginning, because it's not like my teens were that much easier. There was a lot of loss and grief and pain in that period of my life too. But the 20s started off really painfully, but also very powerfully. And so when I look at these lows of even getting sick and having to leave New York and being diagnosed with cancer and recovering and being sick for almost 2.5 years and recovering, those lows showed me what I'm capable of, the resilience that human beings have, and my capacity for empathy for everyone around me. And tangibly, like those would be the biggest ones is like Daiji's passing and getting sick and recovering. But I wouldn't change a goddamn thing. It literally made me who I am and has showed me the way to know how to take care of myself and the people around me.
Right.
And it forced me to live a lot of life in a really short amount of time. And it's allowed me to look at my 30s with a maturity and awareness that without those lows, like I wouldn't be who I am right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. So maybe it's not necessarily that they felt like lows and they were critical turning points. It's that they really were lows and they were critical turning points.
And I think that duality is so important for us to talk about more because, like, even right now, I had the biggest career high of my life a few weeks ago.
You sure did.
But I feel really low. It's the duality, like both and. And I think we have to stop trying to make people think it's one or the other.
Right.
That's the thing of getting older is like life is complicated and complex. So it's both and allowing them both to exist simultaneously and not letting that negate the joy of the high or the pain of the low. They both can and do exist at once. And that's like the messiness of this beautiful thing we call life.
Oh, I love you.
I love you.
My next question was very similar to that. Is sort of
I love you, Julie.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Thank you. I was going to ask, as you enter into this new decade, what is a specific lesson you would like to carry with you from your 20s?
I think that there's no end to the joy, the pain, struggle, anything until it's the literal end. So I think that we sometimes, and it might be human nature, it might be out of necessity, convince ourselves, and we hear this over and over again of like people, the way people say it is like happiness is on the other side of this goal or satisfaction's on the other side of this achievement. In my brain, it's actually just like maybe like easy is on the other side of all of this. But it's actually the ease comes through presence.
And making sense of things and allowing for those dualities.
To exist and being present. And so the lesson I want to carry forward into my 30s is to not rush through it all and to let the pain be painful and to let the joy be joyful. Because one day can be a massive high, the next could not.
And that's okay.
And that's life.
Yeah. Damn.
And so the journey, when I was sick, Aaron and I had this lovely evening with John Rotz, who is Jim Carrey's lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And he is a teacher of transcendental meditation. And so we went to this talk with him.
Yes, I remember this story.
And so we went for pizza after. And he said this to me, and I hated it in that moment, but I knew it was important. And that's why he gave me it, is like trust in the process of your life unfolding.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that has been really on my heart ever since he gifted me that.
Wow.
Trust in the process of your life unfolding. And I think the biggest, like if there was a word for my 30s, it's trust. You and I were talking about this earlier, is like, I've given so much of myself to so many other people, whether it's through investing in their potential, in investing in their ideas, in their work, in and financially, emotionally. Like I see the world. I see people's potential. I see who they can become. And it's my turn to trust people to see me and to trust people to invest in me and to trust people to help build me up. And that's what I want my 30s to be defined by, is trust. I want to trust myself, and I want to trust the world and the people around me and my audience and my listeners and the people who have been with me. I just want to trust all of it.
I believe that energy, that, that karma will be reflected back to you.
Yeah.
In whatever way it's meant to be.
Yeah. Trust in the process of your life unfolding.
Trust in the process of your life unfolding. I've got more questions, but
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, I like this. Trust in the process of your life unfolding. This one might feel like a bit of a no. I think, okay, so I'd phrase this a few different ways. I was going to make it playful, but I think there's a way to, as a millennial, a person of the internet, social media expert, guru, someone who participates in every single forum and medium, you know these spaces really, really well, and you see the threats and opportunities and weaknesses, but you still choose to engage in these. And I think you still see the value of participating through various social media forums as a force for good. Can you speak to a little bit of why you choose to play in this world, why you still believe in this, the power of these spaces to be a driver of something, positive?
I believe in the platforms that we have the potential to build on the platforms that others have built for us to share on. Because when I was in my darkest moments, it's what gave me light. So when used, I don't even want to say incorrectly, but it's just like what I said about pain and joy earlier, that the duality. I think when we think about life, it's always the duality. We hear about for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For the level of good and love and joy in the world, there is that much evil, hatred, and darkness in the world. And so the same exists for the platforms that we use to share our stories. And it just so happens that my gifts and the things that I do can best be expressed on social media platforms. But it also happens that in my darkest moments, my cell phone and scrolling and the people that I chose to follow brought me light and brought me back to joy and brought me back to my own potential, and allowed me, isolated in the middle of the country, to see the wins of my sisters like Rupi, like Sandy, and I was just, Sandy, someone I followed online for a while, but was cheering her on without her even knowing who I was. Same with Deepika and Payal and all these new friends that I was able to make this fall. They all walked me through the hardest moments of my life without even knowing me or realizing that they were doing that. How much of a gift is that?
Absolutely.
So to know that there's even a potential that I'm doing that for someone else is astounding to me. I'm so vulnerable right now.
Lovely.
So to know that through me making this podcast or sharing our photos on Instagram and our love with the world and my life with others, my questions with others, that someone can be coming out of their own darkness because of it, that's pretty fucking cool.
It's pretty freaking cool.
I love how you were like earlier, can I swear on the podcast? I'm like, yeah. And now every time I swear, he just looks at me like, oh, you swore.
I know. It's funny. I'm sort of going to answer the question I just asked a little bit. When you asked me to interview you here, through that same lens of feeling that there's a tremendous opportunity of like sharing our story and honoring that and creating a conversation that people could sort of see themselves in, but also see like sort of the power of what we've built over the last 11 years as partners. I don't know. I think we both just, our gut is that there is this power in sharing, in authentic storytelling. So as much as there's the good with the bad, there's so much more good that comes with it.
And I think, my instinct when you said that is we can't look at the scales and say there's more or less of the good or the bad.
Duality.
Right? Like there's no way for us to actually quantify that from a scientific perspective.
Sure.
But we know what it feels like for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like we're going to Mexico on the 15th, which I'm super excited about.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm going to be turning off my phone for that full 10 days because...
We'll see. We'll probably share some photos.
Yeah,
Or
I might
I
jump
will.
on for a bit or
Yeah.
I'll use Mitch's phone to do it very quickly. But it's allowed to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And it can bring so much light to so many. And so that's what keeps us going.
Well, you bring so much light to so many. So thank you, Komal, for holding space for my questions. It's been a delight interviewing you in your office, and I can't wait to celebrate your 30th birthday with you.
I love you so much.
I
Thank
love
you
you
for
so
doing
much.
this.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
I'm
I
gonna-
hope we weren't too much.
I'm going to ask myself one last question.
Sure. Oh, okay.
It was a bit meta.
Curveball.
Because I just feel like there's more on my heart I want to say, but
Yes,
I don't know
please.
what it is.
I'm just going to nestle into my chair here and get cozy.
Nestle in. Actually, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Um,
I'm messing with my microphone. I hope that doesn't make noise.
I think you're okay.
Okay.
What has it been like watching me grow up this last decade?
Oh, man. Hot seat. You have served as the single greatest source of self-belief that I have seen anywhere. Because as much as I see movies and other people's stories, I don't get to engage with that in the same level of fullness that I have with you. And watching you navigate the last decade and, you know, live that green light life, it still comes with its extreme vulnerability challenges, you know, like just because you see a green light doesn't mean it's easy. And so watching you pursue, okay, all right, I'm gonna go all the way back. Like from the first few things I saw you do, I was astounded. From SAA, the South Asian Dance Team at Carleton University, you just put so much love and energy into that, and your commitment was just like astounding to me. And then you became very passionate about the Relay for Life. So it's a Canadian Cancer Society fundraiser, and you took on that huge piece, and you constantly push yourself to do something that you believe would be tremendously empowering for you, and more frequently tremendously empowering for other people. And often that's through like identifying a gap or a lost opportunity and saying, oh my God, like I would kick myself if, as the person who identified that gap, I didn't try and fill it. Mm-hmm. And so you did that with Relay. You saw the opportunity with Dream Girl. You were like, wow, this looks so incredible. I see that this person, you know, is looking for support in this beautiful journey. And you had that guttural thing and you just threw yourself at it. And every time you've done that, I've internalized that in so many ways in my own life to say, okay, let's be honest with what it is that we want for ourselves. Let's be honest with the challenges, you know, the ambitions. Am I listening to what I can do for other people? And so I think you've helped me push myself every year more and more just by watching you live your life to live a more empowered life myself.
That's so nice.
You're so nice. Sorry, that was a long answer.
It wasn't at all.
I'm just going to gush. This could become 2 hours of me just telling stories about how much I think you're awesome.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
What do you hope for me in my 30s?
More of the same. I love this. I love watching you live your life. I think something I would love to see. Well, no, I don't have wishes because they're just going to manifest. This is what you do. Really though, like I don't need to hope for it. I don't even need to ruminate on it. You just manifest things that are meant to be. So what I expect, my guess is that over the next few years, your journey is going to include a lot more people, a lot more beautiful stories will be told through the various endeavors you choose to pursue. And I think every time you do that, you know, you create opportunities for us all to I don't know, see ourselves in other people's stories and just like be more human. So I think this next decade is going to be like a beautiful world tour of being present in this moment of our lives.
And what for you, my husband? You are going to turn 32 in April.
32 going on 12.
Is there a lesson you wish you would have known going into your 30s?
A lesson I wish I would have known. I would consider myself pretty risk averse.
I kind of force you to be opposite.
Oh my God, do you ever? Yeah, I mean, I don't like to fail. So I think I would, if I were speaking to a younger version of myself, I would encourage myself to approach failure with a much more playful energy, because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Right.
Even if you just shit the bed, if you just failed so hard trying to do that thing, you always come out triumphant in some form. And it's a beautiful exercise. So it's a healthy reminder for me now, you know, as a young adult to take myself a little less seriously. That's something, especially in a government environment. I work in a somewhat stuffy government department where often people take themselves too seriously, and it gets in the way of so much newness, you know, quality of work, and just like general happiness. So just returning to that, you know, that playful Billy Goat root.
I do, like, I was talking to a friend of mine about it today, but that the rest and like the down moments, coming back to our playfulness. And that's something that you've always helped me with, is playing and being in a state of play. And I so appreciate that. And so I hope my 30s are filled with trust, playfulness, duality, growth. And I don't know, I'm just so excited for this next chapter, but at the same time, like wildly vulnerable about it.
I just need to take a little picture.
Mitch is taking my picture right now. I'm sure it'll be in my stories on Thursday with these $20 headphones. Check it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this week's episode of Lessons Learned. It's true, I'm turning 30 on November 10th.
Woohoo!
And I couldn't think of a better way to do this, dive into this next decade, than to have the love of my life ask me some very meaningful, apparently very vulnerable, emotional, wonderful questions. So thank you guys for tuning in. I love you so much.
Love you.
The next time you hear from me, I'm going to be 30, flirty, and thriving. And yes, I already watched 13 going on 30 when Scorpio season started.
Oh, God.
And I made Mitch watch it too.
It's not bad.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you want to follow me, Komal, check me out on Instagram at KOMALMINHAS, or the show at Lessons Learned Podcast _. And if you have an idea of a lesson that we should dive into on the show, then slide into our DMs and submit there or on the website, along with any guests you think I should interview and talk all of the things with. As always, I hope that you make some time for you this week and reflect on the lessons you're learning or have learned, and take some time to celebrate all the incredible that is you. Until next time, guys. Bye!